I think we are vastly in need of places to be real with the demons that we have carried around and to feel accepted in those things.
Healing is not a sexy thing. As a matter of fact, there's no optimization model for this current situation. And that fear cannot be snuffed out. It can't be stuffed. It can only be incorporated, seen, and understood.
I was abused, I was hurt, and it wasn't my fault.
Yoga showed me that there's many parts of myself that are blocked off to me, that I don't have control of, that I don't have freedom in.
We definitely went to the depths of hell together.
As hard as I could to fling myself into danger and adventure as much as I could. In the moment, I didn't really recognize that, but I was just constantly throwing myself into different new things.
Aloha, and welcome to another episode of the Embracing Human podcast.
Before we begin the next episode, I'd like to take a quick moment to ask for your support in helping us grow our podcast.
Take a moment to like, subscribe, or follow on whatever platform you're watching this on.
Your engagement helps us to grow our platform as well as allows us to invite even more interesting interviews in the future. I hope you enjoy the following episode and wish that you gain insight, clarity, or knowledge about what it means for you to embrace being human. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Embracing Human podcast. Today I'm your host, Scott Stone, here with a dear friend and brother, fighter, business owner, son, amongst many other things, and a previous coaching client. So we get to dive into, as his sweatshirt says, the raw and the real. Without further ado, Kamran Saraç, pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to, I've seen your other podcast episodes, and I remember you talking about this a while ago before you even started it. And I saw the vision in your eyes when you would talk about it previously. We'd have our conversations when I was still working with you as a client. And it's really cool to just see your vision be cultivated and manifested currently and being able to sit here with you today. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, it's beautiful to see how life unfolds. And I'm just reminded of how we met, which is such a funny story of the way that life's intelligence works for us. We met. Actually, before I even met you, I slept in your bed. We were at a shared homie's house, and I got there the night before. I was actually on the road trip back from Arizona and visiting my family for the winter. And, I got there and James was like, oh, well, Cam's bed's open. Let me talk to him. And you're like, of course. And I was like, oh, that's really sweet of this guy. I don't even know who he is. And I come in the next morning and you just jovially, bright eyed, hey, man, it just, and I feel like we just had full send right from that onset. We were watching Peter Crone videos and fighting in the yard and just all these things. And you've always struck me as a man who's here to live.
Yeah. That time period of my life was very interesting because when I look back on it now, if I were to characterize it, that's when I was really in my hero archetype, trying, as hard as I could to fling myself into danger and adventure as much as I could. When I look back on it, in the moment, I didn't really recognize that, but I was just constantly throwing myself into different new things, not even necessarily danger, just newness. And everything new at that time was just striking me as just wonderful. So when you came, and I immediately could tell from your energy, you're an interesting person. I wanted to get to know you. That's probably why I was so cracked out in the morning, wanting to talk to you and all jovial as you described. But that time period is really interesting. And I look back on it so fondly of how thankful I am that no matter the different excuses I could have made for myself or different avenues I could have went down, I was always throwing myself, like I said, into that newness because it let me meet you and it let me experience so many things before. I don't want to say, what I'll say it as is life eventually, when you reach a certain age or when you reach a certain maturity, better said, when you reach a certain maturity, you start to take on responsibility, and responsibility starts to hone your focus. Not to say that you get trapped or you get locked down, which a lot of people describe it as, but when responsibility pulls your focus and hones it, that's when those adventures become less so. And you have a single soul journey now that you're on, rather than that preeminent, bunch of different little side quests and little tangential things you might discover when you're more in your youth before full maturity. I'm not saying full maturity now, I'm saying as you're coming into your maturity. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm really grateful for from that time. And I'm really grateful that I got to meet you too, of course, because that's the only reason we ended up working together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, you said about, this honing focus, and the longer that we walk this path, the more clear our Dharma gets, and the opportunity to truly live that. I'm curious what that occurs for you as currently.
Currently, I mean, just to give an image to a description, I really just see it as a mountain. So when you're at the base of the mountain, you can do any sort of different frolicking or do whatever you want, really. There's not much direction. But as you're heading up toward the mountain, it gets narrower and narrower, and the paths become less so and less so, different, less options to veer
Mm-hmm.
off on, right? As you reach toward the peak. So currently in life, I feel like I'm obviously still toward the base of the mountain or whatever, but really I'm feeling my paths have narrowed in a certain way where now I'm here. My sense of self is much more fulfilled from that previous time that I was describing before. My sense of self was almost non-existent back then. That's why I was always adventuring. But my sense of self is very much fulfilled now in my work, in my relationships, in my pets. I'm so happy about all I call them my babies, my pets here at the house. All those things, it's much more honed focus. I wake up and routine blossoms. I don't follow routine because I have to. Routine blossoms every day, and I'm very happy for it because it gives me a structure to understand my life through. And that's how I really feel like paths have started to come together and my focus is honing. I see where I'm supposed to be dedicating my energy, and I'm happy and looking forward to dedicating my energy there. And
Mm.
I've never felt that way before in my life. I've always felt like whenever it came to an option to dedicate my energy toward a task, I was always with a big question mark in my heart. I was like, should I? Is this really where I'm supposed to be? God, what am I supposed to be doing? Universe, what should I do? Da 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 da. There was always doubt, a hanging cloud of doubt. So that's where I would really characterize myself now is that hanging cloud of doubt has kind of dropped to the wayside, and I'm really starting to embody where I'm at currently.
I love that. And I was having this beautiful conversation yesterday with a buddy about doubt, and like how subversive it is as an energy to really try and steer us off our path. I think you were probably always on this path and had to navigate, some of the shadows and such in order to get here, right? And be through that, you created something beautiful called the Haven. And could you tell me a little bit about how the Haven came about, and what it means to you and to the other individuals that come into its doors?
Well, I guess that's a long story. I was about to just hop into. I guess I'll say this part and then I'll hop back to where it really was culminated or where it first hatched as an idea. But the symbol of the Haven is the golden wheel of Dharma, and within it is set a landscape with many different mountains. It's a mountain scape, right? A mountain range, and a rising eastern sun over the mountain range. And I feel like those clouds of doubt occur in the valleys between those mountains where there's much darkness and shadow. And we don't even realize the shadow is being cast from new opportunities falling upon the mountain that's waiting for us. But since we don't have the perspective to be able to see that, because we're all human, we can fall into a deep sense of doubt and confusion because we identify with where we're at currently. And that's a very common mistake I have made. And I feel like everyone has made along our journey of life where we identify with those valleys, or when we finally reach a certain peak that might just even be a little hill. It's not even like really truly, where you're supposed to be just yet. We try to identify with that, try to hold as long as we can as king of the hill instead of being able to rise to a much larger place, much more embodied place. So that's why I love that visual, and that's why I set it as the symbol of the Haven, because there's always a rolling mountain range in front of you on this journey. There's never a destination that you reach. And I think that the rising eastern sun is just a beautiful thing that reminds you of new days and new beginnings, always on the horizon. No matter if you're depressed or no matter if you're gleeful about it, there's always new days on the horizon that'll bring new things, new threats, and new opportunities. So that's the vision of the Haven in one photo. But the actual egg of the Haven was born way further back when I first fell in love with movement practices. And my first real exposure to that, I would say, honestly, it may have begun Yeah, when I started doing my yoga practice, because my yoga practice came before I got into martial arts and all those things that you were saying about being a fighter or whatever. I got into yoga and it was a very astounding thing to me because I had always been a physical person. I was lifting, I was swimming competitively, but yoga showed me that there's many parts of myself that are blocked off to me that I don't have
Mm.
control of, that I don't have freedom in. I was tight in certain areas that I didn't realize I was tight in, et cetera, et cetera. And that really excited me into movement practice. And I feel like that elicited from my yoga the even thought to try martial arts, right? If I was just lifting and I had never been exposed to different modalities like yoga, I don't think I would have even considered martial arts. But when I got into martial arts in combination with my yoga practice, that's when this world started opening up to me about holistic health, because I was steeped deep in a ultra masculine world, very yang energy of martial arts and MMA fighters, and everyone's the toughest guy and everyone has the biggest ego, and it's always slapping wrists and making sure that everyone's a big tough man, which is valid. That's a place where that's supposed to be. Not saying that's wrong. But then I'd go into the ultra feminine and the far side of yin, where I'd be, going to yoga and enjoying my practice and having mainly female practitioners around me, not many men, wherever I was training. And so I was starting to see this very schism duality that wasn't ever brought together into one space. And it was leading me to think things, well, I can't afford my membership on my martial arts and I can't afford a membership at my yoga. It was a real life problem for me. And I would only be able to do class passes every now and then for my yoga. I had to decide to make a decision as a college student on a budget. And I thought that was very bizarre. And it made me very upset about that need to make a binary decision like that. But from there, I continued on my journey and I met other people, like you brought up James, who also was doing many movement practices. And we enjoyed doing movement practices together. And we had actually traveled down to St. Petersburg one time and we saw this beautiful place. It was previously named the Movement Sanctuary. You won't be able to find it now. It's insane. It was in St. Petersburg, but it got shut down, unfortunately. One of the most beautiful, beautiful movement, it actually is a perfect name for it, sanctuaries I have ever set foot in, of any gym I've ever been in, anything. This was a spectacle to behold. I loved the Movement Sanctuary. And the reason for that was it was a 2-story warehouse that got converted into a massive, massive playground for aerialists, Lyra practitioners, acro yoga people. There was a class specifically just on handstand and handstand balancing. Upstairs, they had wrestling and then a tricking person that did tricking with just his body movements. All these different classes, not only under the same roof, but happening at the same times. And when you would walk in there, you would just feel the buzz, like you're in the middle of a hive of all these people, of all these ideas crossing platforms where there have never been lines crossed in any other gym I had seen. All of a sudden, handstanders are talking to yoga people on a daily basis and then applying that to yoga flows for their handstands, and then vice versa. They're giving them different things. Then you're seeing wrestlers in the same room and they're walking past to go to the boxing bags, and they're viewing these things that otherwise they would never be exposed to. Maybe they'll take a class. I loved it. I loved the cross platforming, and that sparked the idea in my mind of just, yes, of course this should be how things are. Why wouldn't we just have a literal sanctuary? That's why I wanted it to be named the Haven. That's why wouldn't you have a place that you can come to and here are all your tools for health. Here are all your tools for movement. Here are all your things to make your body be aligned and be okay as a home for your spirit. Otherwise, you have to make binary decisions. Oh, I only have, even for non-students, for older people that have families, you only have a certain allotted time in your day. You can't just go to the gym after work and then go over to martial arts after you get your lift in. And then after martial arts, go to your other gym to go do sauna. That's 3 different trips, all who knows how much time for just travel. You have to go home and also have dinner with your kids and help make sure that they're ready for tomorrow. It's not realistic for any human in the current scheme of living, whether student or adult, to be able to actually live with freedom in their health routine. They have to make choices that end up cutting themselves off from holistic health, which we are as whole beings. We're yin and we're yang. You can't only have a yang practice. That's why you see so many knee injuries and back injuries. You can't only have yin practice because then your strength and your tendons and everything may not be proper. So you need to have a balance of this yin and yang. And that's what I really realized when I saw that movement sanctuary is these are blissfully happy people that are enjoying their community. And so that's what the Haven was founded on. That's why I called it a holistic health club rather than some martial arts gym or, just generic name of gym. I wanted it to be known like, okay, this is a place where we're really taking all angles into consideration for how we can improve our health, including sound therapies or whatever else might come in. And the whole thing is, I started off the space coaching and teaching yin yoga and martial arts, but I don't want to be the coach there. I enjoy coaching as I want to. But the great thing is we just this year started taking on new coaches now. So I can sit back and allow the space to be used as I always intended it and wanted it to be by coaches. So they don't have to also make terrible decisions like, for example, black belts in jujitsu. Well, I really love my jujitsu practice and I really love training and I really love coaching people, but I have no clue how to run a business. I've never owned a property before, and I've never had to actually lease a space, build out everything for my business, and try to actually charge people and figure out how to do payment processes and yada, 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 all the lame stuff. I just want to come and do my jujitsu and choke people. That is so fair for a black belt to want to do. But for him to be able to go open his own space, he has to figure out all those other things. Why does he have to be a business owner in order to teach people and to share his wisdom with the sport? And that goes for everyone. So that's why I love being able to be a manager of space, a provider of space for people to use, and for practitioners to not have to make those hard decisions, and for them to be able to come, float in, teach as they please, and float out without any attachment. And so that's what I'm really excited about this year. I'm hoping to also get another yogi on board this year and then just keep going from there.
Yeah, what a beautiful reminder of like the complexities of business ownership, like to want to come back to the craft, but to also be like, well, I gotta pay these bills and I gotta do the marketing and I gotta do all this other stuff. And I really like what you said there about having a space to be able to channel just a specific aspect of that, whether it's for you or for the people that you're giving the space to and letting use. It's something that I don't think a lot of people talk about. I think the complexities of, I like to say that entrepreneurship is the highest form of self-expression. And maybe that's not, I'm not a parent, so, or at least in the human sense, that might be even higher. I would put relationships up there as well. But I think entrepreneurship it's a journey that I think a lot of people, whether they want to go on or not, I don't think they ever really experience.
And I don't know about exactly like you said, I'm only 25. I don't know anything about the highest form of self-expression. I just know it's been a terrific form of self-expression for myself. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And not only that, I feel like it is so revealing and rendering to try to actually start a business, because you're putting yourself out there with the risk of failure, and you're putting yourself out there to be judged on your product, to be judged on your service, to be judged by the community. And not only that, it's to be judged by yourself too, which is actually the most impending threat. That's the most impending looming thing in your mental scape. The opinions of others, of course, like rattle around in there sometimes, but your own opinion, your own judgment of how well you're doing, or if you're effectively doing this, if you're actually pushing forward each day the correct way, that's very, very threatening. And also looming behind that is the fear, do I even really want this? And so I feel like entrepreneurship, from what you said, I totally agree, is rendering and so raw, to come back to the hoodie, to be able to expose, okay, is your heart really here? Is your heart set really within this? And doubt, like we talked about earlier, doubt is absolutely going to arise. I don't care how much passion you have. Doubt will absolutely arise. I don't think you're even a well-minded person or even have, a working brain if doubt's not going to arise in any of that process. So it is absolutely something that's going to shape you and help you realize who you really are and what you really want in life. And I think even if you start a business and it fails, oh my God, that's going to really, really feel awful, feel awful. But God bless you actually know what your heart doesn't want now. And you're back to square one anyway. There's no loss. You're back to square one. You may have lost some time, but did you really lose that time? Because you used that time in a way towards something you thought your heart wanted and then learned it didn't want, and may have developed skills along the way. that would have set you up for the thing your heart truly wants in the future after that. So you never really know. All you can do is trust your feeling and trust your gut, trust your instinct to lead toward the compass that you're supposed to be headed in, leading in the direction you're supposed to be headed in. And then what's failure? There's no failure. If your business fails, your business fails. You don't fail. You understand, okay, now this is something that wasn't supposed to happen and my heart wasn't here, or my heart was here, but damn, I messed up these few components that are skill set. Let me work on those skills and then become a better business owner and try again. You know what I mean? It's one of two options. So you have clarity either way at the end. So I think that we try to highlight failure way too much. There's really no such thing, even though that sounds a bit corny and repeated a lot, but there really is no such thing as failure. It's just more and more clarity along your journey, no matter which way it goes.
Yeah, outcomes. And there's this conversation that keeps coming in, and outcomes is this like a good example of it. And it's getting into the mind of the part of you that is a mixed martial artist that does go to the mat to fight, to win or lose. And I think there was something that really came up because during our coaching, but it's also mirrored in entrepreneurship, which is chaos. And the part of Kamran that was addicted to chaos. And could you tell us a little bit about that journey and how you channeled that through the mat?
Oh, dude, if it wasn't for my movement practices, God knows where I would be. That's the main place where I dealt with chaotic forces in myself. Facing them in the externality, I didn't even realize in that moment was really just a mirror for myself to look at myself, because I couldn't look at myself otherwise. I couldn't deal with the things that I was feeling inside or were unchecked or were unseen, because it was too scary, it was too fearful, and it was too big. So, along my journey, whether it was lifting, no matter what I put myself to in the realms of chaos, I always became obsessed with and deeply fascinated with. It's very odd. I can't really explain it to people, that when I got into bodybuilding, I became absolutely addicted to it and reached an end. And then all of a sudden this thing is still here that I'm not looking at, right? And it evolves into the next step, which was then deeper movement practice and more complex movement practice. And then all of a sudden martial arts. And then all of a sudden, I'm wanting to do fights. And then through the whole process, there's things in other parts of my life, because we're holistic people. We're not just movement practices and healing modalities. We're holistic people. There's other parts of my life where chaos is brewing, but I just want to continue going to those external chaotic things. And so little did I know along that way, I was looking away from the chaos within myself to try to deal with these chaotic events external, to feel like I'm wrangling with it, to feel like I'm Hercules wrangling the lion. But instead, I should have done that internally. And I feel like that's somewhere that you really helped me a lot, was talking with you and realizing this is a hub for me to be able to look within myself and realize, dude, maybe you really like lifting weights for 3 hours because you have so much unchecked energy within yourself that just wants to destroy, for various reasons that we navigated. And then, hey, bro, maybe because you got kind of fed up with that abstracted idea of destroying in lifting, that's why you got into martial arts and you just wanted to destroy other humans, whether through chokes, submissions, or otherwise, or beating them up. It's like maybe these things are all, and then things started connecting. And that was an extremely tremulous time of healing for me, because I no longer had my externalities I had previously relied on for my identity, and things sunk in very fast and very steep. And I'm very thankful for your guidance and your brotherhood throughout that time in my journey, to be able to be a place to come back to as a home base to share, because we cannot share at all about these things with other people. And I feel like that's what lends to the externalities occurring. If we had more open dialogue about, hey, we all are literally humans that were in diapers that had no clue what was going on for most of their childhood, and we can't account for what things had occurred abuse-wise or trauma-wise, and then all of a sudden we gain consciousness along the way, and we're in school getting told by parents and teachers all the time, constantly, what we're supposed to be doing and how we might fail and how you need to live up to expectations. And you're in this you all of a sudden gain consciousness having already been running on the hamster wheel. It's not like you gain consciousness and decided to hop on the hamster wheel. You're already in the hamster wheel when you gain consciousness and you start thinking, wait, like, what am I doing? And then voices constant. So, when I get reminded of that, I just think, man, why do we go around constantly trying to act like we're always knowing what we're doing? And why do we always go around trying to act like this is a normal thing to be doing, that we can't talk about how wild this journey of life is and how we have literally no clue what's going on, that we have just taken it as it's come to us so far. And that's what you really helped me with, was being able to sit down and be like, dude, I don't fucking know. I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know what I'm currently doing. I don't know who I am. And I'm really needing to figure it out, because it's leading me in really dark ways to feel really down, really glum, and not happy about the next day. So I'm so grateful for you, because that was a pivotal year for me to be able to come back to myself in that, in the alchemist sense, Negrito or dark labyrinth of my time and my journey.
We definitely went to the depths of hell together.
Yeah.
And it's, I appreciate your willingness to bring that up, because I think we are vastly in need of places to be real with the demons that we have carried around, and to feel accepted in those things, to feel like, and you and I talked on a lot of those things, and partially because I could relate, whether it was physical abuse or sexual abuse or emotional abuse, suicidality, meaninglessness and hopelessness and despair. Like, and I think that's what sets me apart as a coach, is there was no advice giving in that. I didn't have any of your answers. I just was willing to climb into your hole with you and sit there and be like, hey, homie, I'll just hold the candle while you sort through your shit, And I think that in a way is indicative of the energy of the Haven too, of like, hey, you can come here and fight your demons. Like, I'm not going to fight them for you. I'm not going to do these postures and stretches for you, or do the breath for you, or sit in the cold plunge for you, but I will sit next to you. And to have a brother along that path, it's a very lonely path to heal. And I don't think we talk about that enough, is how for a minute, both you and I had to write off our parents. Yeah. Because we had to be the victim. We had to let that part of ourselves cycle and be like, no, I was abused, I was hurt, and it wasn't my fault. And to give ourselves the space to feel those things. And some of those things, I mean, there were some tough moments, some scary moments of just like, I don't know how this is going to go, or I know how this is going to go, but man, in this moment, like, this doesn't feel good. And to just be there with you in that.
Absolutely. I mean, healing is not a sexy thing. A lot of people chalk it up to be a sexy thing. It's very similar to like how people treat self-development, and how people talk about, all these different habits you should incorporate to become a better person. And it's almost just like an optimization model for geeks for their life. And they treat healing the same way. And people don't admit that they're being a little geeky, but they're being geeky. And in a matter of fact, there's no optimization model for this current situation. It's either you're going to look behind your giddiness over the optimization and realize this is a cope and I'm extremely scared, or you're going to continue and fall into confusion constantly and keep trying to rerun a new model until you lose your mind or you end your life. That's genuinely your two options. So I'd rather admit my fear now as best as I can, because it's not easy at first. And you might just get a little glimpse for a second or two and then look away. But that's better than not looking at it at all. And then over time, it becomes longer and longer gazes. You can look into that abyss and be able to understand, like, wow, like, this is here. It's not moving. It's ever present. Whoa. And that's the depths of your being, though. So the depths of your being are scarier than the depths of the ocean, because you're deeper than that. It's an infinite chasm. And in that chasm, we populate it full of monsters and terrible things. But in fact, it's nothingness and it's emptiness and it's void, which is scarier than monsters. So we populate it. And whether that's through externalities or whatever we want to figment as reasons for victimhood in our mind, those are our monsters we like to blame. And in reality, it's void and beautiful infiniteness that you have inside of you. But beauty only comes through being able to wrangle with fear, being able to wrangle with that lion. And that fear cannot be snuffed out. It can't be stuffed. It can only be incorporated, seen, and understood. That's the hardest part. The hardest part. And that's the thing I really feel like fighting has helped me with. And I feel like in my last camp for MMA, that really came through. I mean, everything kind of coalesced in my last camp where I realized, man, like I've really been scared of this whole fighting game. And behind that, man, I've really been scared of just being me. And it's words that are meaningless, but behind those words have a deep meaning for me. And, and for each person, it's going to be something else. But when you can admit fear and admit you're scared, things start opening and up and blossoming. Because it's not sexy to admit you're scared. It's not a sexy thing at all. It admits that you're a fool and admits that you have cowardice within you. And people don't want to admit to non-virtue. People don't want to admit to that. It's much sexier to say you have virtue and that you're a hero along the way. But, in the alchemist viewpoint, along the way, your hero has to die for redemption to eventually occur. So even just as Jesus Christ's story with symbolism there as well, Jesus Christ had to fall first to the depths of hell and see the dragon and in the deepest, darkest parts of hell before he rose again. So your hero, no matter what, has to fall fully. And the fall is not sexy. The fall is a terrific tragedy. And it's because, especially if you've identified with your hero of I'm redeeming myself, I'm doing all these things that are great for myself, I'm really putting my life together, when that falls, it feels like your whole life's coming to an end. But when that severs, that's your biggest opportunity and biggest chance to rise again. And it's not about, oh, now I'm really doing it. No, it's about sitting in that void. And that was the scary place I was at when we started to work together. And you, like you described so well, came in and sat there with me and held the candle. And that's where the work really begins and where the work really happens, is in that dark recess.
I look at this portrait that comes out into the world of like, oh, this guy who fights and all this, he slays people in the mat and he has a business and whatnot. But the reality of the things that you fought and confronted while we worked together are bigger adversaries than any blue, black, purple belt that you've ever met. Is your mind. And I'm wondering if you can let us into some of that. Like what was your journey with our time together that you willingly took a look at and peeled back the veil on?
Again, an image is best. My mind was an overgrown garden full of weeds and terrible thorny things that were constantly hurting me. It was a weapon against myself. And you came in and you just helped me feel okay and non-anxious about the issue of this needs tended to. That's what made me feel safe, to be able to look around. And, you get anxiety when you start thinking about a lot of work you have to do. Like, oh, wow, like my whole place is messy. Everything needs like fixed. I need to go vacuum. Then I need to dust. Like there's a layer of dust this thick on every single shelf. Oh my God. And then I need to go outside because all these weeds are growing. It's like you get an anxiety and a pent upness, most people, unless you're some Buddha. And you really helped me in that time to be able to look at it and be like, dude, that's why we're here. That's why we're here. We're going to tend to these things step by step. We're going to look at these things. And you helped me cultivate my mind into a beautiful garden for it to be ready for blossoming, for flowering. And I feel like I've described this to other people that have had strife and like came to talk to me. Your mind, when it's well, when it's healthy, is a beautiful, beautiful tool that can be used, sharpened, and honed. Your intellect to be able to solve any problem set in front of you, any problem. Solution just blossoms from it. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, the intellect. And I feel like people misunderstand Buddhism when they say, don't listen to your thoughts, don't listen to your thoughts, don't listen to your thoughts. It's a misunderstanding because your mind is a beautiful thing and you shouldn't be trying to stuff a pillow over it and shut it up or suffocate it. Your mind's a beautiful thing and it's talking to you for good reason, but you have to remember that you're not your thoughts. And that's what you helped me remember, which is what helped with my anxiety, is these things coming up aren't me, but it's an extreme hint to tell me what I need to look around at. You see what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's really the journey I went on with you at that time. And it was a place that I was at where my mind was constantly attacking me with negativity, constantly attacking me with low self-worth, constantly attacking me. I was at the point where my mind, in fact, was infiltrating my dreams with vivid hallucinations of trying to hurt people that are currently in my life that I love, currently trying deep down, they love me so much and want the best for me. And I was having vivid hallucinations in the day and while I was sleeping of harming them in different ways and how I'd want to harm them. That's the place my mind was at. Terrible weed-filled garden, terrible weed-filled garden, thorns everywhere, nothing sexy about it. Terrible, terrible experiences for my mind. And your mind can do that to you. And the terrible thing that the only terribleness in that is when you identify with it and think, am I really this abhorrent? Would I really want these things? Am I this terrible of a person? Am I really this dark and hideous and gross? No, you're none of those things. The dark and hideous is just in life. And the dark and hideous contrast the beautiful in light. So it's simply your whole being that's being exposed to you. Whatever object it grabbed onto in the externality for it to expose itself, it's going to do whatever, whoever that person might be or whatever that thing might be. But the essence of it is just your being, and it wants reasoned with and incorporated and not to be scowled at by you in some horrible neglecting manner, like a bad parent. It wants to be loved and incorporated. It just needs to be reasoned with. And I feel like you and I really got to grapple with that with our what's the therapy modality called with the
IFS.
Yes, thank you. With the IFS, I forgot the name. The No Bad Parts book really helped me with that. I'm really glad you referred me to that book because that really put me into conversation with these parts of me that were unchecked and running around like rampant toddlers. And it's not to demean them by calling them toddlers, but it's just those thought forms are from a very early date in my history,
right? And
they never were really updated, which comes back to my idea of you were just conscious on the hamster wheel already. And so that's why it takes a conscious being to be able to say, okay, removing myself from the wheel, watch it keep spinning from momentum. That's very difficult to do. But when you can sit, that's when it's meditation truly. And you can watch these things come out. And without identity, you can detach from it in a way that's not neglectful. It's detachment in an incorporating sense. I see you and I understand you because I've listened to you. It's not, I see you and get in your place and you're supposed to be over there. It's, I'm seeing you and understanding you only because I've listened to you, whether that's extremely dark and ugly parts of you or extremely inspired and happy parts of you that want to achieve absolute glorious visions in life. So that's how I feel that you really helped me in that time and how my mind transformed over time. That's the main way I feel like we did that.
Yeah, I love what you said there, Cam, about this idea of listening to these parts and not trying to force them into anything, because, you know, like you said, the point of calling them toddlers is about timing and not about like maturity. It's about these things are just young. You know, they've been doing this for a very long time, and for that, they've been taking notes for decades. And if we think we're going to outsmart them, they're like, "Oh, that's funny. Watch this." Now you're watching porn. Yeah. "Oh, that's funny. Watch this." Now you're at the bar. "Oh, that's funny. Now watch this." Now you hate yourself. And learning how through presencing to sit with those parts and just be like, tell me more, like show me why. And, you know, some of these memories that come up of just, and they're so incredibly vivid, of us running from someone or being yelled at or being shamed or being touched, whatever, like, oh, that's why. Got it. Okay. I need to put that curtain back in place for a little bit and like see if my nervous system can handle what truth you just showed me about my past. And to do that in a very like titrating effect so that our nervous system doesn't just crumble. But what it does is it creates so much compassion inside of us to be like, wow, no wonder I smoke so much weed. No wonder I watch so much porn. No wonder I'm so angry, because look at what I haven't confronted. Look at what I haven't allowed myself to feel because it was too terrifying or it was too whatever. The depths of feeling that we went to, you know, to channel your rage, to channel your shame and your worthlessness of like, wow. And I can resonate with every one of those feelings. rage, worthlessness, like just some of these really awful emotions that in society we not only don't talk about, but we don't even get the space to really feel them.
No, and you're absolutely right. And when you don't do that, when you don't have an outlet or a reciprocity of being able to share these aspects, it just manifests in shadow behavior. I mean, it's just a guarantee. It's either going to occur in light, in consciousness, or it will be saved for the dark, where everything ends up when it's not in the light. It's one of two options. Mm-hmm. So that's really what I've seen over time as the pattern in my life, where I'm like, oh, interesting. And it's an ugly business, man. There's nothing sexy. I'll keep coming back to that, because I feel like that's a main thing blocking people right now. It's a main thing blocking people, is that things are supposed to look sexy the whole way. And even they're again trying to assume the hero archetype when it's not timely. This is not a time for hero archetype. This is a time for you to genuinely fall and crumple back down to when you were an infant, when you were a toddler, and really just be able to be with self without some need to be better. You can't be present if you're thinking you need to be better. And we disguise our feeling of desire to want to be better in so many ways that we don't even know we're feeling that way. Oh, are you going to listen to this part of you that's really ugly to you because you think you're going to be better after? Interesting. You see what I'm saying? Rather than, oh my God, this part of me isn't some weird abstract thing. No, this is literally me that's screaming for help. There is nothing about it that is sexy or redeeming. It's a terrible, terrible tragedy. Not only that it exists, but that it's been calling out for you for so many years with no answer. And you expect it to get solved like this, like cake. And I'm speaking for myself, because I've gone through that issue. It's not something that's just, okay, yeah, I'm listening to you. Oh, yeah. Okay. How about that? Oh, no, it comes from a genuine place of just embodying tragedy, of trauma, of life. Life is tragedy in many ways. And being able to really, and I'm using the word embody because you can't keep it in your mental space. You need to feel tragedy for self, or else you're never going to really incorporate or come to union with the traumas you've incurred. Mm-hmm. You might plaster over it some shoddy foundation and try to build over it, but eventually it's going to concave. It's going to fall apart again. And many people don't have the removal to be able to see that cycle occurring in their life, where they continually build new things, like I was saying, optimization models, building new things on top of shoddy foundation. And they wonder why over time periods, it falls. To me, it happened so many times, I almost lost my mind, because you eventually are just like, there's no other option now, and everything keeps failing. I must be a failure because this is impossible. My life must be meaningless because I can't find meaning. No, it's that you haven't looked deep enough. You're still looking at surface variables. And that foundation is absolutely like what we looked at together. And in general, what I feel like a lot of people are missing, because they want it to look sexy and want it to feel like they're really doing something. No, like this is a very sticky, at many times ugly business, where you have to face parts of you that make you feel like you are never worth virtue. And you have to feel that way. That doesn't mean just because you're feeling it now that you'll always feel that way. But there's parts of you that just feel like you aren't worth any redemption. Because how could I look at this? You don't want to look that way. It's really shitty. So I feel like that's where people really struggle in their healing journey, and where they come to a halt and they say, this is a good enough foundation. I'm cool just staying in this cycle. And it's unconscious. They're thinking that way. This is where I'll lay my foundation. Now I'm solid. I have an idea of who I am. And then they'll go back to building sandcastles and wondering why the waves are washing it away. But no harm, no foul. I'm just saying, with this podcast and the people that you have contact with through this podcast, I feel like that might be something that is relative to people that are listening and wondering about their own healing journey. And understanding that we're not here trying to, and by we, I mean people in this type of community, we aren't here trying to make this seem like it's a blast and that it's some sexy, cool thing. And we're going to go to, this different retreat in this different country, which I think is awesome. And I really want to come to your retreat, by the way, the next one. And I think it was Colombia. But you're not going to those retreats and all these different countries and stuff to be a sexy world traveler, although you are. But you're doing it to be with people and in communion and be able to feel a togetherness as you're falling into these pits. And that's so important. I was just having a conversation with a 19-year-old friend of mine who felt like he was all alone as he's going through a deep confusion right now. And I just, in the middle of my day, just had like a 2-hour conversation with him, and I really told him, I was like, dude, you are not alone. Like, these are things that no one talks about and that none of it's pretty. And I just want to let you know, I feel for you and I'm here for you right now. I don't care about anything else I have going on. And that if you ever need me again, you can call me. And it's a lack of communion, or a lack of brotherhood, or just a lack of feeling seen truly that we're lacking, and our soul feels starved.
I really appreciate what you said there at the end about like making time for other people, and especially for us as men, like brotherhood, like the ability for one man to sit with another man and say, I see you and I don't judge you. Or if I see you and I judge you, I own it as my judgment, not who you are. And I had it happen yesterday. I was on the phone with one of my buddies, close brother of mine. And I was like, dude, honestly, last time we talked, I was pissed at you. Like all you did was talk. And then I fucking open up about something really hard and you just made it about yourself. I was like, bro, shut the fuck up. And he's like, damn, dude. He's like, I'm sorry. Like, I love you so dearly. He's like, you mean so much to me. He's like, my life is different because of you in it. And to hear that you were deep in a spiral of resignation about life, like, one, I want you to know that I'm here with you, and two, that I go there as well, and this opportunity for men so deeply needing to not feel so alone in the world, and alone in our problems and alone in our misery, and just and to have a haven to be like, hey, I don't get your experience. The more you share it, I will, and I'm here with you now. It's so dearly and deeply a commitment of mine. And honestly, like, kind of what my coaching is based in is like, I don't necessarily have anybody's answers, barely my own most of the days, and my willingness to discover what's there. It's been a very interesting path of healing. And I too agree, like, healing is so far from sexy. It is grueling and it is hard and it is lonely. And I respect anybody who's willing to go down that path, to be better, to change the genetic lineage that we are part of, like the choice that you made as a man to break the cycle in your family, whether it's repressing and not talking about things that are so obviously there, or playing small, or whatever that looks like. It is so deeply needed. And I love to hear that is rippling out into your world, into your community, into the men that you come across as well.
I really appreciate those words. And, I have two things to say to that. The first thing, just because you brought up, my father and habits from him. I mean, to this day, I still notice habits that I find that I found irredeemable in him that I still repeat. And instead of, hating myself or whatever through that process, it's larger than that. The things that you're doing, I feel like we use the word healing a lot, right? And there's a healing aspect of this journey, absolutely. But at a point, it turns into becoming, and the process of becoming in the moment and evolving in this moment. And there's only so far that healing goes, and then you need to start becoming yourself, And it's not about, it's always waiting over there. No, becoming is here, and you're always becoming. And you get to watch this transformation. And that's what I feel like currently I am doing, is becoming myself, no longer relying on these mental frameworks that I incorporated from when I was like 5 or whatever, that I didn't even realize were built in. And, observing these behaviors that maybe my father would have done when I was 5 years old, that I'm now doing, that I never coded in consciously, that were coded in completely unconsciously. And rather than identifying with that or casting extreme blame and victimhood on that about how awful my father must be because I'm now repeating him, and oh my God, I hate him so much. don't you hate yourself then? Because you're doing the same things. You know what I mean? And it's like when you look at that, then you realize, okay, like rather than identify with that, that's fine and that's there. And that can be there, but I'm still becoming myself. So you're able to let go of that. And I feel like that's also a really blessing thing to see with people that feel like the word healing itself unconsciously makes you feel like you are not completely whole yet, and there is definitely an aspect of your journey where deep healing needs to occur because there are things that have been unchecked, but it's a different energy and it's a different subtleness to notice when your life is in becomingness. There's still challenges. There is still turmoil within you. There is still, deep energies occurring that need to be seen and processed. It's very much a similar process, but rather than dealing with the past now, you're dealing with the present in this mold. And of course, you're not staying there. And I'm not saying like I'm present 24/7. I'm always dipping into the past and dipping into the future like everyone else. But what I'm saying is these things are occurring here now. I'm no longer trying to fully understand how I even came here. Like how I understand. When I see that habit from my father, I can understand it. Why? Because the work we did together, with the work I've done with my therapist, I understand that map now. So I can be here now and become myself in a deeper, more meaningful way, which I think some people sometimes neglect to talk about in healing or in healing conversations, in this community. It's a whole other thing when you start becoming. And it's a beautiful thing because you're no longer rooted deep in the past and your identity in the past. I feel like that's a major shift that occurs, even though it's very similar in the feeling of subtle energies, the deep processing that's occurring constantly. That's being alive. That's called being a soul. And there's always things as you're rolling in the ocean, man. You're feeling the great energies that are occurring. You don't want it to just be a bunch of little, feelingless world. You're going to be feeling the whole time, brother. And it's like, don't you want that? It's a beautiful experience. So that's what I feel like you get gifted by coming to healing is you little by little then start to get to enjoy almost like being a surfer on these oceans of energy, that you are the universe, that you are riding this wave, that you have skill and tact to be able to deal with these waves, to be able to ride them beautifully and enjoy them every way, even when you crash. And that's the beautiful thing of becoming to me, is that I'm really starting to enjoy in the journey, is letting jovialness leak into moment to moment to moment more and more, and incorporate moment to moment, and letting those habits dissipate by themselves, not trying to actively hammer them. But the other thing about the Haven that came to mind, besides that aspect of my father, was at the Haven, I make it a point to air out everyone's dirty laundry, and not in a terrible like, oh my God, Cam's going around gossiping about people. No, I make sure that anything I say about anyone in the Haven, right? Anything I say to anyone about anyone is something I would say to their face. And I will say in front of them, in front of everyone. And the reason for that is I don't want dark shadows to be cast in this gym. I don't want dark shadows to fill this space. And if you have shadows, you're going to stuff shame into them. And no one's going to grow that way. And so when one person, might fail to pay his dues on time, or another person might leave dirty laundry in the showers, or another person might come and say he doesn't want to be doing his current job when he has bills to pay, right? You bring it up in a way with tact, with understanding and empathy, but you bring it up in front of the collective so that people understand this is a community where we deal with things together. This isn't a place where you try to sheepishly come in and we're not going to notice that you might be acting sheepish today. And then we're going to act like everything's fine and you get to be sheepish over there with your little dark shadow behind you that you're stuffing things in and not wanting to face. No, as soon as that person walks in the door, I'll say, X person, you left dirty laundry hanging in the shower. What is this? Is this your bathroom at home? Why are you treating the place like this? And I said, and then, there people right away are laughing and stuff. But the thing is, people understand I'm coming from a place of empathy and from love, not coming from a place of, you should be ashamed of yourself, da, 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 da. No, and they'll laugh too, because they know I'm not going to kick them out of the gym. I'm not going to be mad at them. I'm making jovial fun and also bumping their shoulder a little bit, little check. And that's how we keep each other up as a community, is that bump on your shoulder is also telling you, I have your back too. I'm not trying to strand you. But what I'm saying is we're in this together as a union, and I don't need to say it outright. I say it through those behaviors. And it's a beautiful thing that we're doing at that's just kind of done by itself at the Haven, where someone misses their dues. I'll say, why person, oh, you're in here again and you still haven't paid. Like this, you're just riding off the coattails of other people trying to sneak in the door. I see you over there. Like when are you finally going to get your credit card bills in order? Da, 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 da. And it's like, just because why not? Right? What are you losing? What? Oh, you're a mean person and bringing up people's financial issues in front of other men that also have financial issues. What? No one's dealt with finance issues in their life? Everyone has. So all of a sudden you're being a terrible person because you're pointing out that person's. No, it's coming from a place where I know financial issues. You know financial issues. Every man's dealt with financial issues. So why are we trying to say this is some topic that really should only be done in private, Cam? It's 1 month of membership dues. I'm not kicking you out of the gym. I'm making a joke that I'm letting you in here without paying. Of course, I'm going to let you come train. I know you're the, and then they'll laugh too. And they're laughing and they'll come up to me and just say, by the way, just so you know, I'm getting paid on Thursday and I'm going to pay off those things. And then Friday, I should get you back. But it's fun. And you turn the heaviness of shame into a laugh that gets to be ejected. You know what I mean? That's what I notice, at least. I've never had anyone come up to me. No one ever come up to me and just say, Cam, I don't know why you said that in front of other people. I thought that was extremely disrespectful. I thought that was absolutely abhorrent. I don't think you should have done that. That was a private conversation we should have had. Because you understand when you have compassion, like you brought up earlier, from your own journey, what things are on limits and off limits. Would I bring up someone's deep relationship troubles in front of other people? No. But it's simple things like we've all dealt with, though. I'll point them out. And, it's something that keeps communion and makes people realize like, oh, I can't come in here like half-ass sheepish and just like skirt around the corners. Like I'm here as an embodied person and I belong here because people are accepting me for my faults and for my glory. And that's what I think is really beautiful. Like when you brought up, the things you brought up with the Haven prior.
I love that aspect of like, it's coming full circle of like, at least in my world, of like busting each other's balls. And I remember hearing this thing, and then I want to take like a hard right turn on the conversation, but I remember hearing this thing once about the reason that men bust each other's balls is because you wanted to know if they would run away when battle came. Like you want to know that your boy is not going to drop the shield if if push comes to shove. Like you want to know he's going to fight with you versus like, oh, you're actually a coward and you're going to run away. Like, oh shit, and until I did a lot of my own inner healing and examined and felt and expressed my brother wound with my older brother, I hated people making fun of me. Like I wanted to punch them, but it was in feeling like, oh yeah, that little boy, that part of me, he never got to have his part. He never got to like talk back. Cause if he talked back, he'd get punched in the face, he'd get punched in the stomach or he'd get made, like whatever. Like, so once I felt a lot of that stuff, it was like, oh, I could, you want to hang? I'll climb inside of your head and I will plant tannerite in your brain, bro. I will blow you up from the inside out. Like, let's go. And people are like, oh shit, bro. Like you don't fuck around. Like, and then just put that in check too of like, wow, I'm trying to win right now. Yes. It reminds me of that jovial nature and the hard right turn is through this journey that we went on. Like when we first met, like you were, unbeknownst to you, you were about to touch the lowest of the low, of just like, all right, I'm going to like unpack all of this stuff. I'm going to empty out my closet. And that interim phase where everything's out of your closet, like it feels really messy. But, the last session we had a year later, like the gym is about to open. You're going to Thailand for a month. Like you have a girlfriend, you have a dog. And that was that hard right turn I wanted to make was you getting a dog, like you, like having Altai come into your life and like feeling what it feels like to care for another. Like it's so beautiful to witness because your care for yourself made space for you to care for something else. And it was just like, it was so beautiful to witness the joy come through you for that, for your servitude to some other being.
It may have came through as beautiful, but oh my God, was that fucking scary.
I appreciate the realness. Tell me more.
You don't just go into a lesson and make the right choice. You go into a lesson and make the wrong choice, and then you have to learn from the wrong choice. That's the lesson. And so the shitty part is you're first going to be mean to your dog before you realize, oh, I'm supposed to be like enjoying this relationship with my dog. You don't just enjoy it off the bat. Maybe some people will, but they've maybe had different lives than me. But for me, I never saw love in that way. So for me, without knowing, again, habits from my past, I always thought I was a nice, caretaking person, would never be mean. And I was mean to my dog when I first got him, when he wouldn't go potty where he was supposed to or whatever, stupid stuff. I'd be mean to him. And I remember there was one time I yelled at him and I was so mad at him. And then I just felt a crushing shame after being mean to him, to where I just didn't even feel like I deserved his love at all. And in that moment, I'm crying in my living room. And this dog who just got yelled at like crazy, that has no reason to ever come up to me or ever even want to be around me after just getting yelled at that bad, comes crawling up to me and just curls up in my lap. And it's just deep breathing, like working out the emotion with me. And I can see it in my head, that memory, because it's so vivid for me. I'll never forget it. Because that was a jaw-dropping moment where I realized, okay, this is something that is trying to teach me what love looks like, is trying to show me what divine love unattached from any outcome looks like, what truly the universe wants, what truly God wants. What this little creature right now in my lap is doing is showing me the lesson of the universe. And that might sound dramatic or grandiose, but that is a completely innocent puppy, a completely innocent being, born devoid of any sin or any wrongdoing, just doing as his nature implies, and he peed in the wrong place. And he's, regardless of whatever I might have done to try to traumatize him, because that's what you're doing, yelling and being extremely crazy, is you're trying to invoke trauma so that they'll change their behavior. So my conscious invoking of trauma upon this little innocent being, he still crawls toward me and wants to be with me and wants to be in oneness with me, union with me, trying to absorb my emotion and help me through it. Deep breathing, tremulously, tremoring breath. And that showed me so deep. I just started sobbing for so long after that, because I've never been held in that way. You held space for me, of course, that's one way, but this is a completely different dimension. Mm-hmm. And, since that day, I felt like my relationship with him would completely evolved. And I realized this dog and I are in union, no matter what, no matter what. When he feels terribleness, I feel terribleness. When I feel terribleness, he feels terribleness. It's crazy. When I feel happy, he feels happy. When he's happy, if I tune in consciously to his happiness, I feel happy no matter how I'm feeling in that moment. Mm-hmm. Just about tuning in, because we have conscious control and their innocence and their non-conscious control. Mm-hmm. And so it's beautiful, man, that having that dog come into my life was such perfect timing. And my spirit must have known, the universe aligned that for me, because when I was driving to him unsolicited, I just literally had to pull over the car and just was sobbing, which I never do. I never just get struck with an emotional breakdown. I have to work into an emotional breakdown. I have to really sit there and but I knew what was coming. In a deep part of me, I knew what was coming. I knew what was about to be rendered from me. And I went and got that dog. And literally when I went up to him, when they brought him into the room, they set him down on the floor and he looked at me and he just ran up and immediately jumped in my arms and started licking me all over. Not a second of doubt or any hesitation to come up to me. And it was just the jovialness personified of the universe, just happy in love, happy in love. So absolutely, Altai was a pivotal part of my life, coming into my life. He felt like my philosopher's stone in many ways. I don't feel like I would be able to have gotten through that time. Of course, we had each other, Scott, but I don't think I would have gotten through that time in the way I did without him.
I 100% agree. The magic of a dog. It's not random that it's God backwards. I heard once that was God made dogs as a makeup for humans. Sorry, I fucked up. Here, let me give you dogs. And I was so excited for you when I saw that you got a dog, and I was like, okay, dude's also about to get epically confronted, whether it's with anger or control or love and tenderness, and just this little chonker with legs, like this little sausage with a snout, like just the cutest bundle of joy. But it's such an example of like what we're able to tap into, like there's so much love and presence in a dog. It's just like, I don't even know what to do with this right now. Like, and then Luce's been the same thing. Like, I didn't have Chester as a puppy. I got him when he was 4, when my wedding engagement fell apart. Like, then, and all the suicidality came in. It was like, oh, like I'm going to blow my brains out if I don't do something here. And then my parents gave me Chester, and now with Luce, to have her as a puppy, like, whew, bro, like talk about epic levels of confrontation and real looking in the mirror of like, wow, I just hit this dog. Like, is that who I want to be for her? Is that who I want to be for myself? Like, no, like, okay, well then something's got to change. I got to learn how to channel my anger in a different way, because otherwise this like beautifully sweet creature is going to receive it. And I don't want that. I think it showed me like, I don't know if I would directly say like, I want children. I think what I would say is like, I see the gravity of what it means to be a parent,
Oh, big time. As the biggest glaring thing to me, of course, the love and the things I described with Altai, the thing that really stood out to me though, as a lesson, apart from what I described previously, was, oh my God, of course my parents did what they did. That's genuinely where I reached. I understood so deeply from my relationship with Altai and how easy it is to make unconscious decisions. You want to be an idealist and you want to be the bigger guy than the grass is. You're standing on the grass that's greener, and you're the more virtuous man. But when you're in that position, you all of a sudden immediately realize how easy it is to be unconscious in how you treat another being, especially one that loves you, especially one that you're the caretaker of. It's extremely easy to make that choice. That's why it's so enticing, because it's an easy choice. So easy to elicit anger and induce rage upon this being that's innocent. Of course, can't defend itself. What's it going to say? You can do it so easily. And then it's the problem. How could it be my problem? It's your problem. You're the problem. You're just throwing it off. It's the easiest thing you can do. So I had to come into direct contact with that. And it's extremely ugly. And it makes you understand why healing to becoming to self journey is not in everyone's purview. It's not in everyone's forefront of consciousness to undertake, because it is difficult and it takes focus and attention and willingness to change moment to moment. And it feels like a marathon when you place pressure upon it. It feels extremely raggedly tiring. It's awfully tiring to constantly try to be on it and change and be the best person. That's where idealism falls apart, and that's where the beauty falls apart, and you get left in the muck. And that's where you can rise, and from there, no longer have that feeling of impending pressure always to just try to always be conscious and constantly always try to be evolving. And it lets it be itself without trying, because you get broken down by the trying. And it's one of the hardest parts of that year working with you was getting broken down by the trying and realizing, man, I'm a human like everyone else. And part of being human is we mess up. Tying to the theme of the podcast, embracing human. That was a major part of me that I had to incorporate. Is I am not an idealist Buddha sitting up on the top of the mountain that had to come down and deal with worldly matters. And I just want to be focused on myself and think that. No, we're all just human. And until we come to that place where we can accept that, we're going to be casting out into externality the problems that we need to face within ourselves. And that's what I was doing to Altai. I'm sure you've done with your own dogs, and you realize it could be easily done to children in your future. Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people don't understand or are willing to face things when it comes to dealing with parental trauma and things like that. They can't place themselves in their shoes. I know I wasn't able to, but when Altai forced me into a version of their shoes, I realized through my own mistakes, But until you can swallow that pill and you know, be the own taker of poison, you don't realize how easy it is.
Ooh, yeah, it's taken me a lot of time to be able to do that, and there is no skipping steps, you know. Like I wasn't able to do that, and I would assert you weren't able to do that until you did the inner work of being hurt and being the victim and being wronged and being abused, and then could be like, oh wow, like, well, if I was in their shoes, like I would have done what they did because I was them. Doesn't mean I enjoyed it. Doesn't mean I condone it. Just means like I understand.
Yeah.
And then to get, you know, another creature that I'm responsible for, you're responsible for, it's like, oh, like, yeah, I'm super dysregulated right now. I wish it was going a different way. I'm telling myself all these stories. And so, yeah, duh, like I'm gonna do something human too.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to make a quick interjection. Just imagine, bro, you have all these tools and all these understandings in your toolkit and you're still flubbing. Yeah. I have all these tools and all these things in my toolkit and I'm still flubbing. Now take our parents who had no tools, no understanding of these inner workings or these subtle energies, and they're just getting knocked around by the things and happenings of their life. Bro, like, how can we fault them? We're still faulting and we have everything for not faulting. Right. Like, and that's the place you're like, fuck, dude, like humans flub. Humans flub big time and we hurt things and we break things, dude. Tons of times.
I really truly believe there is an assault going on generational wealth right now with the like pornographication of healing on the internet and all these like keyboard warrior fucking TikTok therapists of like, yeah, cut your family off, cut your family off, cut your family off, because then their parents are going to donate their wealth to some hospital wing instead of give it to their kids. And the billionaires are like, yeah, we'll take it. You know, like I really truly believe that there is a deep, deep, deep opportunity here. As Mother Teresa said, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family, and like truly understand like where they were coming from. And again, you cannot skip steps. Like I can only say that because I've gone to the depths of hell in my healing and been like, I felt like I've allowed myself to feel the victimization of some very unfair things. And to understand that for me, my case, most of it was my brother's pain being passed down to me and my parents being so overwhelmed, they didn't have time to stop it. You know, as much as they wanted to, they were trying to like live the American dream and hope that just as much as they sorted it out that I would, you know, and like it just didn't crumble that way. And so years later now to be in a much different understanding for my parents. And that doesn't mean I allow it anymore. It just means that like I understand and now I have boundaries, you know, and yeah, it's just to look back on the time that we spent together in that container. Like it's miraculous to see how different your life is, you know, for you to be wearing branded merchandise from your company, you know, and like, you are a testament to what is possible when you do the work. And I really appreciate your fortitude and commitment through that, because it was not fucking easy.
Thank you. I really appreciate the words. I appreciate you and your fortitude to be able to continue going. And through all of the, I'm sure, unspoken, terrible, dark shadows that you've had to drag yourself through at times, you still have any sort of semblance of wanting to help people or wanting to assist people. There's plenty reason to just say F this and F you. There's plenty reason. So I see you in that, and I see your resilience and your willingness to commit to your vision for what your purpose is here. And purpose is a hard word, and it's a difficultly complex word, but you know what I mean. Yeah, and so I see you in that, and I really appreciate you for being there for me when you were going through your own things. And there were times where, you know, I really, what jumps out to me of something that really told me your character as a man going through his own life was when you had that very tremulous time while I was still your client, and you had reached out and just told me, I won't be able to do our coaching call this week, or I think it was 1 or 2 weeks you had to delay. And you're like, I'm going through this time right now, and I can't be a container for, you know, other people right now. And I recognize that. And I was like, wow, like that's such a self-aware thing to be able to see where you're at, and like not being that guy that's going to show up fake for that hour to just get through it. And, you know, because you have some obligation or something that you have to go do. No, like you understand the sanctity of that container, and you place that above any of that pride to need to show up, or, you place the sanctity above everything else. And that really spoke to me. And like, I really appreciated you telling me that versus just showing up and pretending, So I see you through your own journey and your willingness to assist and adapt along the way. Thank you.
Yeah. Cause I was in my own hell too, like I was oddly enough, or not oddly at all, like I was at your house a couple days after Chester died. I remember bawling in your room, like so incredibly hard, of just like, fuck, this is awful. Like, this sucks. But how lucky am I to be with a brother who I have witnessed in his lowest of low, and he can be with me in mine, like, oh, it was tough. And I really appreciate you saying that about me choosing myself in those moments, because if I'm not showing up for me, there ain't shit that you're going to get. All right. No way in hell that I'm going to be able to give you anything. And for your love to accept that and to be like, yeah, fair game. Like, I'll see you when I see you then, and it means a lot to me, because sometimes that part of me that struggles with like, well, this is your commitment, bro. And it's like, whoa, bro. Like,
I know that voice. I feel you.
Woo, yeah, it's real.
Yeah.
So just to wrap it up with a pretty bow here, for, whether it's your community, my community, or just people along the journey, like, what are some closing thoughts or some practices or just some words that you would send people off with that are on their commitment to becoming their full authentic expression?
To wrap up a thought that's lingering in my head from when we were just talking about parents and, dogs, that might lead into and leak into what answers your question. Whether it's a child, whether it's a dog, whether it's a fish, whether it's whatever, when you begin to mature and take on responsibility, and part of that responsibility being real relationships, not just joking around with boys when you're young, but taking on real relationships where you are part of their support network in reality. No longer, these are my guys that I like hanging out with, my crew that, we go do fun stuff. We go to bars and, we just have fun. When you start taking on real responsibility, which is part of that relationships, you begin to see you might have been lying to yourself for a while in what your true hierarchy of priorities are. So what shines through for me is, well, when I have Altai and these struggles with Altai, well, I was extremely busy at work and I'm already stressed from work. And now I have to do this thing after hours for my other business. And then, I have to go make sure I'm eating too. This before I was dating Adriana. I have to make sure I eat too and everything, because she's a marvelous cook and she's an amazing chef. She's always cooking, but I have to go eat too and make sure that I'm good, because I need to also go do my, workout, because I can't just be doing business, because I also have to keep, my body sharp and when you have all these things you're doing and you're falling into the Maya of, and then your dog does something out of line all of a sudden, and you just whiplash effect of anger and rage. What are you doing? Screaming, whatever it might be. You realize I might need to assess what my hierarchy of real priorities is, because you might say you're all about love and compassion and truth and relationship and belonging and community. And then the first thing you're thinking about in the morning is work. And last thing you're thinking about is ever about anyone that you care about, or about any community that you belong to, or about any love or compassion you might be able to bring. And you have a real opportunity to assess your hierarchy of priorities. And it's extremely elevating and a blissful experience to let those fall into true alignment, rather than allowing it to be skewed by whatever might be societal implications of, you're supposed to care about work, or social media trying to tell you you're supposed to be better than you are now. You're supposed to be doing better. You're supposed to be doing more. When you just let your hierarchy of needs flow into true union, which is, above all else, I want to make sure that I'm healthy, right? Put on your oxygen mask before you put on your child's oxygen mask, because you'll pass out, before you're able to take care of your child. You put on your oxygen mask first. You make sure you take care of yourself. You make sure that you're healthy. That means just balanced eating, nothing outrageously crazily obsessed with optimizing, just balanced eating, balanced movement. From there, you can fall into places where you can be tranquil enough to share love and have wonderful relationships with people. And work and all these things induced with the Maya and the illusion of keeping this external world going, that can come after all those things are satiated. Where your soul is coming, if you don't have those things above all else, is from an agitated angle. It's going to deal with things in an agitated way, which is why people are obsessively using coffee, why people are obsessively using agitating substances, Adderall, using agitating substances for focus. You come from an agitated angle because your soul is starved. And so when you satiate your soul and you fall into your work in the Maya, you fall into your work in the external, things flow magically. You can't account for how they flow. You can't explain for how they flow. Your mind can't explain any of it. There's no reason. For some reason, it magically flows much better than the agitated angle. And it's such a backwards approach for the mind because the mind is all reason and PEMDAS and things should happen like this in this order. No. When you satiate your soul, that's when magic occurs and uplifts your life. You no longer are doing, it's doing, and you're witnessing. And it's little things you touch along the way as adjustments. And so I guess that's like something that you can really call into, like your last question as a wrap up. Because I feel like all of us, of course, if we get asked, what are your things you care about in your life? Oh, I care about my family. I care about my relationships. I care about, feeling loved. I care about feeling good about myself, my health. And then you looked at day to day how we really live. Is that actually how your hierarchy's flowing? Is that truly your flow chart in your soul? Is that really how things are trickling? And for me, I realized it was completely upside down. And that when I had the time for it at the end of all the bullshit in Maya, that's when I would randomly, assortedly deal with things, agitatedly or reliantly for refuge from the agitated things prior, right? Dealing with work and etc. And everything was always some stress or something to relieve a stress. That's all it was to me. Now it's satiating, and then everything else simply happens. And you don't necessarily care if there's a really big problem at work or if things are going really well at work. You're just well at work. And that's like a massive shift for me that occurred, where I was no longer tying myself to, coming back to what you said, outcomes. And then it was simply me within, being well within, and everything assorting itself. Some people may attribute, oh, but you may have done this to make it better and you did this to make it better. But in reality, to you, from your own subjective angle, things assorted themselves. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't much at all, actually. There wasn't much heavy lifting at all. And it was always everyone doing their component in part, because of course everyone's going to do their component in part. And that hero narrative completely falls aside because who needs a hero? We're all doing wonderful things every day to keep lights on, to keep water running, to keep life going. It's already a miracle. Why are you striving so much to try to do all this? You see what I'm saying? So taking a moment to really just analyze where you're pointing your energy and not allowing your energy to be focused and honed by life. Life will hone it naturally. Where are you skewing it in different areas? And allow, maybe by assorting your hierarchy, to allow it to trickle down the way it's supposed to. That's what I would say as a wrap up note, because that's the biggest lesson I've learned over the last year since we kind of wrapped up with our client work. And I remember after when you asked me if I would like to renew, I just had such a deep gut feeling that no, I needed to be with one voice now and listen to that one voice. And it was so teaching. And you allowed me to even find that voice. That's the thing that was massive, that you prepped you helped me in that dungeon and cultivated the garden, like I said, for a readiness to flower and blossom. And there I got to witness at the end by myself standing in the garden. Wow. Thank God. Thank God. And I got to really just listen to that voice. And it showed me so many things that can't be spoken. And I'm sure you understand that too from your journey. So many things that just can't be spoken to. So many things that integrate on a subtle level, that process on a subtle level that you can't communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the biggest thing I would say is allow life to hone your focus and allow it to point the direction of the compass for you, to analyze what are your priorities and where is your energy going? Is it being wasted? Is it being underutilized? Whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
And like a flower, it naturally unravels. I feel like from my own life, that's what it's felt like. It's a non-trying. You don't have to try. It's simply happening. And there's no words to really describe that process. That's why I say it's very subtle.
You said two words that I think so deeply answered my question, which were thank God. Over this journey that I've been on and got the privilege to go on with the many other humans was reverence for life. Thank God that this is my life. Thank God I have another sunrise. Thank God I have these people. Thank God I have this dog. Thank God I have God again. And so I deeply appreciate you and how you show up in life and the things that you're committed and crafted to, because it's a beautiful thing to witness. And I'm really grateful for you, Cameron. It's been wonderful to get to know you on such a deep level and to see who you get to be for the world as a product of who you got to be for yourself.
They're very beautiful words. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm extremely grateful for you and the choices you've made to still be here, sitting here. You know, genuinely, I'm so grateful for your courage and strength along your own journey. I mean, it's underspoken the courage it takes to live. It might be something unconscious, but it's extremely courageous to live, actually. To every other being on this planet that doesn't live in perfectly plumbed, perfectly electrically routed houses, a freeze comes late in the winter as spring's supposed to happen. Tons of birds' eggs die. Tons of insects that expose their first larva for spring die. Awful tragedy occurs for every other being in that area, right? But we get to sit within our cozy houses and then say we have problems. You know, life is extremely dangerous and perilous at times and can just snap and take you up, swallow you up whole. So you've been extremely courageous, and I just want to commend you on that, man. That life you've been very brave through, and I'm so grateful to have met such a brave person that's, you know, helped me so much to be able to cultivate my own bravery, to look at myself. And I just want to thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you're so welcome, buddy. And I really received that. It was only recently that I got to see how much strength and courage it takes some days to choose to be here. And I don't say that lightly. I think as I can speak today, years old, like I feel like a lot of that darkness is behind me. And, you know, what is the song? Hello, darkness, my old friend. You know, so when he comes back out and wants some love, I'll be there for him. Where can people find you on social, or what you're up to, what you're creating in the world?
The main public page that you can find is the Haven HHC for Holistic Health Club on Instagram. And also that's our tag for our website. Just add a .com and you'll find it that way too. For me personally, it's Kamran.Saraç on Instagram. But if you just go to the Haven's Instagram, you'll see plenty of me getting tagged places. So you really don't have a problem. I would just direct you to the Haven. And yeah, I'm really excited for this year, being able to just bring on new coaches and share the journey along the way, and really cement this first opening by the end of this year, just being able to fully cultivate, like, wow, here are these coaches enjoying this space. And, you know, I'm kind of past, I just updated my schedule for the first time since I first opened. So, you know, it's like, I just decreased all of my coaching to only 2 times a week rather than 4 with a bunch of different classes I was doing. I just do 1 yin now and 1 MMA class versus before I was doing a ton of coaching. So I'm super grateful for that. And I'm really excited for this new schedule and continuing to grow and meet new practitioners. So thank you for being able to even share my little hole in the wall haven over here in Youngstown, Ohio. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely, brother. Keep up the amazing work, and I look forward to seeing you and squeezing you in person here sooner than later.
Absolutely, bro. I'm very much looking forward to that. That's a good way of explaining a hug.
Awesome, buddy. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for giving us your time and attention and care and love to hear another human's journey, and to let that permeate into your life. And until the next time, Aloha. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the interview today. And if you haven't already done so, please like or follow us on whatever platform you're listening to, and let us know if you have any questions or comments or requests of future interviewees.
And we hope you find this inspiration, the clarity, and the direction to fully lean into being human, whatever that means for you. Aloha.